Hello guys, welcome to my channel, and in today's video we are going to learn how we can create dynamic card design in LWC. So basically we will be taking help from two different sources to create our beautiful cards. So we will be using Lightning design system in our code, and we will be also using the Google images that will be mapped to our cards. So let's jump into the content and see how does it work. So let's just see a little bit about the properties of these cards. So if I go here and hover on any cards, so it will pop out from its place. So it will basically create a zoom effect on this. And in the back end, you can see 3D effects for this card. So this will create a very sleek design. Apart from this, so we have put a different social icon here. So if I click on the Facebook icon, so it will redirect to the person's Facebook profile, and if I click on the LinkedIn, it will redirect to the person's LinkedIn profile. So right now I have just put it the dummy profile. So similarly it will work for the other cards as well. So it's very simple, and but it looks really beautiful. So we'll see the code part, like how I've designed these cards. So let's jump into the code. So I came into my VS Code, and in the left side you can see this is my LWC component. And if I go to the JS part of this, so here very few things inside this. So the first one you can see here is I've created one track variable with the name card, and this is a list of object, and here I have put the 4 object here. So in the first object, if you can see here, so we have this 7 properties here. So the first one is the ID. So this I have created to uniquely identify this object, so that's why this ID will be there. And then this is the subtitle. So this subtitle is basically the text part of the card. And then we have the image URL. So this image URL I have taken from the Google. So if you want to take any profile image, so you can just go to the Google and type Google images and go to the images, and then just put person images and just take any of the image and then copy image address, and then go back to this and then just paste it. So that I've used for the time being. You can also put your image in the static resource and also use it here. Now the next property is the FB logo URL. So you can see on the card, like we have this FB social icon here. So that is the image logo URL. And then the FB profile URL. So this is the URL when we click on this card, this FB icon, so it will redirect to a particular to this person's profile page. So that is the URL I have placed it here. And then similarly we will be using this LinkedIn logo URL and the LinkedIn profile URL, and so that is also available in the UI. You can see it. So the same properties will go for all the other objects, and there's 2 different method that also I have created. Now if you go to the card and if you click on the FB icon, so it will basically call this method, and inside this method I am basically taking the ID of that particular card. Okay, and once I have got the ID, I will be matching that ID to the basically the ID of the card. Okay, this ID I will match, and once I'll match it, and if I'll get that card, okay, so that card item basically will be that particular object, and in that object I am basically using the FB profile URL to open a new window where I'll show the profile of that particular person. So this is also very simple. So similarly in this handle LinkedIn, so this is also a method that will be called when I click on that LinkedIn logo URL. Okay, so when you click on it, I'm getting the ID, and then I'm again using the find method to match if that ID is matching to the any of the object, and then if I get that object, then I'm using the LinkedIn profile URL to redirect to the new page. So that is there in the JS part. Now let's look into the HTML part. So I came to my HTML, and this is important portion where we are designing our card. So now if you see the code is basically all the native tags I'm using here, the div tag, span tag, image tag, all these tags are using. So the reason for that is it's very easy to design if you're using the native HTML, and in future also if you want to add any more items in your page, so you can also add it and place it accordingly. So that is very helpful. So that's why I'm using all the native HTML things. Now apart from that, I'm using custom CSS, but not that much, because we are having the Salesforce classes here, and Salesforce classes are very helpful because you don't need to write that much CSS, and you can use those Salesforce classes, and you can quickly create your card very easily. So now let me explain all the codes one by one. So in the line number 2, so we have this SLDS box here, and this is a div tag inside that. So if I go to my UI, so this is my first portion, like this is the first box where I will be placing all my elements here. So this is that box, okay. And then for that I'm using SLDS box. So when you're designing your form, or basically anything you are designing, you can go to the Lightning design system. So here you have all those kind of CSS available, and you can quickly search for that, and if it is helpful you can use it in your code. And you don't, like, if you use that it will be very easy, and otherwise you have to use the custom CSS. So first search in the Lightning design system, and if it is available just use it. So I have here searched for the box. So this is the box, and here you can see this is the box I'm looking for, okay. All the corners here, and inside that we will have all our elements. So this is the class SLDS box, so that is why I'm using that. And then I'm using a padding around that, which is medium. I'll explain about the padding and the margin thing later. So this will basically create a space between the elements so that we can place the items accordingly. Now next we have this SLDS theme shade. So if you go here and search for the theme, now we have different kind of themes available here. So theme is basically the background of that box, right? So if you want to have a white background, you can use SLDS theme default. Now if you want to use a gray background, in that case you can use SLDS theme shade. Now in our case, I thought it will look much better if you'll have the gray shade, and that's why I'm using this SLDS theme shade class here. So this is that one. And the next is the box. So this is the custom CSS I'm using, because this is easily available as a custom, but for the SLDS I didn't able to find this class. So in the box CSS, if I go into the CSS class of that, so you can see box here. So this I'm using one property called box shadow, and I'm giving all those attributes here to create a 3D kind of effect in the background. So if you go and see my page here, so in the background you can see a little bit 3D effect here, right? So that is why I'm using that box. And if you want to understand more about this property, you can go to the CSS box shadow, and then you can quickly read it about that. Now coming back to the HTML portion, now the next is the again I'm using one div class, and this I'm using let me explain you through the UI. So now what I'm trying to do is, like, I want to create a row here, okay, and that will have all the width, and inside that I'll put this title here, and then in the next row I will again create a new row here, and then in that I will put all our elements here. So that's why in the first row I will be basically I've created this dynamic card design here. Now to create this row I'm using SLDS grid. Now if you don't know about grid, so this is very important feature in Salesforce, and this helps you to design your UI responsive. So you should learn about this grid pattern, and I will be also creating a video on this grid about all these properties here in the later session. But now let me just explain what I'm trying to do in my code. So I'm using SLDS grid, okay. So it will basically give us the information that our cards, that will basically the next section that I'm going to create, it will be placed horizontally. Okay, so that's why SLDS grid is there. And then SLDS gutters, so this will basically give us the information like there will be some gap between the two cards, so that's why SLDS gutters are used here. And then we will be using the SLDS call, because to create a column, so this is one column, this is another column, this is the third column. So like that, here we have created this 3 SLDS call, and then we have put all these 3 columns name here. So similarly, I'm using the SLDS grid. Okay, and padding also I'm using because I want to create a space between this and this element. Okay, so this is space basically, and on the top as well, so little space I wanted to have, so that's why I've created this one. So SLDS pad around medium, so this I have created because I wanted to have a little space between the inside this box, so that's why I'm using this SLDS P around medium. And then I'm again using the theme shade and then the box to create a 3D effect. Okay, and then SLDS border bottom, so this I've created one bottom here, but it's not visible, and I can also remove this because I don't think that will be any use of that. Okay, and then I am using this SLDS call, and then inside that I have used this name of the our UI, basically the card's title. Okay, and to get the title, I am basically again using one SLDS text heading large. Now if you want to search the headings, you can just go here and just put text here. Okay, go to the text, and you can see here like heading is there, right? So you can create if you want to have the large heading, so you can use this SLDS text large heading large. Similarly, you can use the medium and small heading as well. So that's how I have came into this CSS class and using that. If you don't want to use it, then you have to use the custom CSS, and again it will create a lot of code for me, and that's why I have avoided it. Now this is our one row. Okay, and this is our another row, so this is basically this portion. Okay, now inside this again I'm using SLDS grid because I want to align my items horizontally. Okay, and apart from that I'm using SLDS wrap. So this I'm using because now you can see there are 4 cards here. Now suppose I put it one more card, because I am creating dynamic cards, right? So if I put one more card, then how that card will be placed here, because there is no space, right? So that card will automatically go into the next line and it will be aligned here. Okay, so that's the use of SLDS wrap. It will automatically detect and it will align your next card in the next line. Now next I'm using a loop because I have created one card variable, right? So this is our card variable, so where we have all the list of item. Okay, now inside this now this portion. Okay, so this portion is basically each card. Okay, so this is each card. Okay, and size of each card is 1. Okay, now I have put it 5 here, and there are 4 cards because I wanted to have a little space in between them, and that's why the 5th space will be used this between these 2 cards spaces. So that's why I'm using the 5 column, but that 5th column space will be evenly distributed between each of them. So that's how I'll be using that. Now again I'm using SLDS box, and then the margin will be there, and I'll explain about this. And then we have the zoom. So for zoom effect, it's very simple. You can use this CSS. So there are 2 CSS I'm using. The first one is transform scale 1.1. so it's basically if you zoom over it, and it will transform the amount of transformation that you need, so that it will be basically defined. And then this transform 2s is basically create that smooth effect. Like if you don't put this 2s, then it will directly create a zoom, but I'm using this 2s because it will delay that and it will create a smooth zoom effect. So that's the both CSS. And then about the margin and padding, right? So this is very important because most of the time you will be using the margin and padding in your requirements. Okay, so now let me just explain you. Let me go to the lighting design system. So here, if you search for padding, okay, now if you go here, so if you put this class SLDSP top small, okay, so you will have a very little space. And similarly, if you want whatever space that you want, you can take that CSS and use it in your class. Okay, use it in your LWC. Now if you want to have your space around your box, so then you can use this around. Okay, so it will create a evenly distributed space around it, and you can use this CSS in your code. Similarly, we have another property which is margin. So that is also going to create a space between the box. Now what's the difference between padding and margin? So if you go here, let me tell you. So padding is basically the space inside the element and the border between the inside element and the border of that particular box. So this space is basically the padding. But margin is basically the space between the two elements. Like this is one element and this is one element, and this space is basically the margin. Okay, so this is also margin, this is also margin. So if you want to create a space between your elements, you can use margin. And if you want to create a space between inside your elements, then you can use padding. Like if you want to have the space between these two, then you can use again padding. Okay, so like that I have used padding and margin in our HTML. So you can see it here. So this is margin because I want to have a margin between these two cards. Okay, and apart from this, I'm using one custom margin CSS as well, because that margin was not enough for me. So whatever margin that is there inside this, so we have a max limit here, like we can have only this much margin here. Okay, but this margin was not enough for me, so that's why I have created another custom margin CSS, and I am using this inside my HTML page. Okay, now the next, this portion. Okay, so this portion is basically the design of this one and this one, and then the last bottom part. So this is the inside portion design. Okay, so inside that I'm using SLDS grid and I'm using SLDS grid vertical. Why I'm using this? Because now I want all my items should be aligned vertically, not horizontally, because this is one element, this is one, and here, and then the next element will be below it, and the another one will be below it. So all these elements are vertically aligned, right? So that's why I'm using this class SLDS grid vertical. Okay, now again we are using SLDS column, and this portion will be for the image, this image. Okay, now to make this image a round feature, so in the CSS I'm basically using the border radius, and also I put some height for that, so that I will have a proper image in a circle format. Okay, so here I'm using some of the custom CSS. Now the next one is the div is for the subtitle. So this is the subtitle. Okay, so you can see very easy to design once you are using the grid pattern. So you will have all the format, you just need to put your items inside that. And then this one is basically the last one, the social icons. Yeah, so you can see here I'm again using the grid because inside that I want to have these two icons in a horizontally aligned. So that's why I'm using this grid. Okay, and SLDS grid align end. So this I am using because I want both my icons should be on the right side in the end. So that's why I'm using SLDS grid align end. If I have not used that, then these two icons will come in the left side. So that is as per the default. but I am using this to make it in the end. Now SLDS border top, so I'm using this CSS to have a line on the top of this, so it will create a basically separation between these two sections so that we can have a proper look. Okay, and again we are using the padding. So as I told earlier, if you want to have a distance between the elements inside the card, so we can have that padding, so that's why I'm using padding to have some space. Now inside this I'm using SLDS column, and then again I'm using the padding, and these two images I have placed it in the two different columns. So this is one column and this is the second column, and we'll having these two social icon images here. Okay, now if you click on any of the social icon, so it redirects to that URL, right? So I'm using this event on click, and I'm calling that method which I have explained you earlier, this method. Okay, handle FB and handle LinkedIn. Okay, so this is my first method, and then on click this will call the second one, which is handle LinkedIn. Okay, and then I'm using one attribute which is data ID, and I'm providing, like, these all things are going on loop, right? So so the first item will come and it will have the ID mapped into data ID, and similarly the second item will have the another ID. So like that all the card will have their ID here. Okay, and when we are clicking on click handle FV, so here it will go and then it will take that ID using this event.currenttargets.dataset.id. so this is how we get the ID. So if we are using data-id, we can use anything like data-name or anything. So if you are using data-name, then you can just change it here, dataset.name. So like that you can put any number of attribute and you can get that inside your method. Okay, and then as explained earlier, how I am getting the card item, right? And then I'm redirecting it to the URL. So that's all from my side. Okay, so if you have more doubts, you can put it in the comment section. I will be happy to help you. And I will also create some more videos on the grid pattern, so that I can make you understand how exactly we can use the grid in a more efficient way. Now there is one more thing, like as I said, so this card is dynamic, right? So if I go here, now if I have put ID up to 4, right? Now I go here and copy this, and I'll create one here, and I create one more here, and I'll put this ID as 5 and this one as 6. Okay, and I'll just change the image URL so that you can identify this is a different tile. Okay, so for that I have the image. Okay, so for the 5th image, I'll change this to this. Okay, and then for the 6th, and I'll change this to this, and I'll save. Okay, now if I go in my UI, okay, and let me refresh it. So now you can see my 4th, 5th and 6th card are also aligned properly, and that's how the dynamic behavior of the card will come up. You can add as number of card you want, and you will get this kind of pattern here. So I think that's much for today's video, and if you have any questions, you can put in the comments and I will be happy to help you. I will be coming up with some more sessions and regarding the grid design patterns, so I will also come up with that session. And so that's much. So if you like the video, please subscribe to our channel, and thank you so much for watching the video.